Hello everyone, welcome to StraightA. Dawson here, back on our video here today, and today I'll be recapping all of the NFL drafts and the grades from worst to best. As you see on screen, from 1 to 4 on top to 29 to 32 on the bottom. 32 will be the very far right of that tier, and 1 will be the very far left of the top tier. So that's how it'll work today. But before we get started, please leave a like down below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and comment any suggestions for future videos below. Without further ado, let's get right into the video. If you've been keeping up with the channel in the last few weeks, probably a couple weeks, I've been grading the NFL drafts individually by each cardinal direction and kind of reviewing each team actually in depth with all the players. But this time I'm just going to rank them, put them up here, and kind of go from there. So first of all, I've graded them from a scale of A, B+, B-, C, D+, D-, F. There was no F's in the draft. I mean, honestly, it's kind of hard to go F in the F in the draft unless you just didn't have anything to work with, or you just made completely wrong picks. Now there were some teams that were pretty close, D-. There's 5 teams that were in D-. You got the Cowboys, Packers, Vikings, Panthers, and Falcons. And I think all of these teams could arguably, outside of one, be in the realm of here's the worst draft. Because I think that I think the Vikings and Packers made some mistakes. I think Cowboys were too safe or too weird with their draft picks, and they just kind of try to go bezazzle. And Falcons took big risks. And when I'm really breaking it down, I think I have to say the Vikings had the worst draft this year. It's just that I don't believe that they formed the team that they needed to. I don't think they took think they took unnecessary risks for positions they didn't need, and it's just hard. The Vikings, it was up in the air there. But next up, I am gonna go Cowboys purely because they just made some very weird choices, very weird picks. Not saying the players they chose were awful, but they just always every year it feels like they just make some wild decisions. Obviously, they're good players out there. They're NFL caliber players. But I just don't really know what the Cowboys are exactly doing with their draft picks this year. Someone else I don't really know what they're doing is the Falcons. Falcons are easily 29 for me. Kind of above Cowboys and Vikings are kind of the easy 2 bottom, and then the next 2 are pretty easy. Falcons, it's just that if it pays off in the long run, it's going to pay off. But you're a win-now kind of team. And the reason I put you above the Cowboys and Vikings is because Michael Penix is not the worst player to draft. It's just that he's old. You're investing in the future. When you're a team that needs to win now, you don't have a franchise that's just like built, on the backs of multiple Super Bowls. You have some of the worst moments in history, honestly, and it's a really crazy moment to think that, okay, you're not going for the win now moment. So whatever. Falcons are at 29, Packers are at 28. Again, I just don't know if it was just, I think they made good picks, but in positions they didn't need. That's kind of the big caveat with the Packers there, and I think they kind of reached on a couple players, but like they was fine. They made fine picks. They were good. I just didn't feel like they improved their team any is what the big thing was. And Panthers, I'm going to put them at 28. I think the Panthers came out on top with this just because they felt so mediocre that they just kind of almost felt like they were D+, because like they get better, but they didn't have a lot to work with. So I'm going to put the Panthers above the other D- teams. So the next group is going to be the D+ group, and actually there wasn't that many teams. D+, actually only 3, the Bills, the Dolphins, and the 49ers. And it's also a hard one because I feel like drafts are just so hard to like quantify who did slightly better, who did slightly worse, because almost I could see any order for these 3 teams. But if I was just going off gut instinct of who did the worst, I think Dolphins are the worst of the 3 because I feel like they just didn't address their secondary need as much as they needed to early on, and I just think that kind of would add up for the Dolphins to kind of fall behind there. I'm going to go 49ers next, purely because I think they reached for the best players. I don't even want to say best players, but they reached for positions they didn't necessarily need in preparation of possibly losing a couple of their good players, I guess. But I'm not too sure where the mindset of that is. If Debo or Brandon Ayuk get drafted, maybe this goes up to a D+, C. But I just don't feel very moved by the 49ers. And the Bills, I think they made some smart picks. It's just that it felt like they just didn't get much better at all. It just felt like they were kind of on that fringe of C, but like I think that they're okay being in high D+ tier. Is kind of how I feel about the Bills. Kind of Bills, 49ers, Dolphins is kind of the order I feel for that. Next up, we do have the C tier teams. Only 3 C tier teams. Most of the teams in the draft, believe it or not, did pretty good. And that's the Commanders, the Jets, and the Buccaneers. Instinctively, I'm putting the Commanders at 24. They just feel like the team that they just did fine. They just went out there, got their players, got some young talent that maybe could be invested in the future. They reached the positional needs they kind of needed at some point in the draft. it's just kind of it's a wacky situation for the Commanders here. Next up, I'm gonna lean the Bucks. Honestly, the Bucks and Jets are pretty close for me, but I'm gonna go Bucks 23, Jets 22. Both solid drafts. I really have no big comments. They both improved their teams. It's just that none of their moves were that resounding to drastically improve the team. I just think that the Buccaneers slightly improved enough areas, made some weird decisions early on, but then kind of recouped near the end. Well, the Jets just made consistently fine picks, I guess, throughout the draft, but maybe swapping a couple wouldn't be bad. Next kind of draft or next class are going to be the B- teams, and those teams will consist of the Tennessee Titans, the Ravens, the Patriots, the Chiefs, and the Broncos, and the Giants. My bad. Again, this is just a super hard thing because, again, I put these teams in B- for different reasons, honestly. And I'm going to be fair, and I'm going to put the Broncos at 21 because they are a team that you could very much argue is more of a C-tier team. I think that Bo Nix was risky. They didn't have a whole lot to work with, and they did get some necessary positions eventually, but they really had to go down the draft to get those positions. Kind of where I feel for that team right there. And I won't go on a whole thing, but I think the Broncos are 21st best draft. The Giants, I think, slightly overtake the Broncos. I think they made consistently good picks that did slightly improve the roster, and they are investing in the future for sure. They're not just going for a win now mode. So Giants do get the 20 spot here. Of the next teams, I'm going to put Patriots. I think they're an easy number 19 for the rest of that. I feels like there's almost like a tier above B- in between B+ with the Titans, Ravens, and Chiefs, who all made some risky picks, but also were just very consistently good. That an argument could be made for B+. But Patriots, again, they just have typically a safe draft, defensive heavy, and I like it. It was good, but just no player felt like they were a outstanding person of that class. That's all I got really to say with that. I'll go Chiefs next at number 18. Sorry. Again, Xavier Worthy is going to be a risk in the first round, taking him. But again, it's a very worthwhile risk. I think overall their draft was fine. Just kind of that's the one outlier that kind of separates them from the Ravens and Titans. Next order, I'm going to put the Ravens at 17 and Titans at 16. I think the Ravens, again, almost could be argued that B+ tier. I think they made some good picks, maybe got the best player availables at some points. I think the Ravens really did well to strengthen up that core of the roster, but just felt like they could have swapped around a couple things, maybe pick up a player or two that weren't for different positions, that they really didn't go heavy on. Titans, again, I think that I'm warming up to the Titans, honestly. I think they're arguably a B+. I still feel comfortable with them being B-, but I think they are a team that definitely improved quite a bit in the draft, and I think of the other teams so far, they improved the most. Next up, though, we do have the B+ tier, and that goes from the Jags, the Bengals, the Lions, the Chargers, the Saints, the Raiders, and the Rams. Again, another really hard group of teams to rate. I'm going to put the Chargers at number 15. The only reason why is because of the not really getting a certified receiver in the very first round. Now, do they need offensive line help? Yes, I get it. They got the best offensive lineman. He's going to be a cornerstone for that team forever. But still, it's still a risky pick. It's still going to be weird for that team, and especially for Justin Herbert. But it's fine enough to give them B+. I just don't think, compared to these other teams who definitely got strongly better and didn't make as risky of picks, I think they fall at 15. Now, a team that did make a riskier pick that I'm actually a little bit more high on, I'm going to go Raiders next. I really debated between them and the Jags. Them and the Jags are like so similar to me. It just felt like the Jags made smart picks that are going to help the roster definitely. While the Raiders, Brock Bowers, great, best player available, helps fill that receiver slot. I'm just not sure how well prepared, like how much that's going to help the Raiders, whether that pick was the right one or not. And that's the question mark for me. I think Brock Bowers is great, but drafting a tight end early is risky, no matter what. So, and their other draft was pretty good, but not outstanding. So that's kind of why they fall to 15. It's a big question mark about Brock Bowers. Easily, this could be a top 10 one if Brock Bowers actually ends up go really well. But right now, I'm going to be conservative and keep him at 14. And I'm going to put the Jags at 13. Again, very consistent, great picks. Probably the prime of what B+ looks like for a team. Next up, we got the four next teams. I'm going to go Bengals. I think Bengals just played it smart. Did well. Am I going to go Bengals or Lions? Bengals and Lions also debated about quite a bit. Am I going to go Bengals or Lions? Bengals made very good offensive line choices. I think they did everything they needed to, purely and to the point, but it just was nothing splashy. Lions made a couple splashy picks with their corner room. I think that between these two, the Lions got better corners than the Bengals got offensive linemen, purely because of depth. So I'm going to go Lions, Bengals, but again, easily could be swapped around for 11 to 12. Like both their drafts immensely, they filled the needs they needed to, and they're teams that are in prime position to go into make a playoff run. Next up, I'm gonna go Rams. Rams, Jared Verse. I'm getting more high on Jared Verse. I know he's not gonna be an Aaron Donald type guy, but I think he's gonna be outstanding. The fact that he went as late as he did is a crime, and I think the Rams overall made some very good choices. I think there's some riskier choices in terms of not going as heavy on the offensive line, but I think that by them boosting up their defense so much, they can maybe kind of rectify the offensive line pieces a little bit more in the future. I think of the positions when looking at it after the draft, I think the offensive line could be fine. It could be a band-aid, while defense really need to be boosted after Aaron Donald and a couple other players are both getting old and injury-ridden. So I think the Rams at number 10 is perfect. And the Saints, I think they had an outstanding draft. Honestly, I want to put them at A, but I think just they didn't have much to work with. They nailed every pick they pretty much got. I almost want to give them A, but again, I just can't because just the Saints didn't have a whole lot to work with. So before we get into the top two lines here, I actually do have to make some adjustments because I did, off my list, leave out 3 teams, the Seahawks, Browns, and Texans. They are not top 8, but they are teams that are in a variety of different categories. So Browns, they're in D-, and I'm going to put them right behind the Packers. And for the Texans, they were a C-tier team. I think that you can put them right behind the Bucks. And for the Seahawks, I think that they're a B- team. I think I'm going to put them right in front of the Patriots. So this is the actual ordering so far. You can recount if you'd like to. But now we're going to our top 5. The 5 best teams in this draft by far: the Bears, the Cardinals, the Eagles, the Steelers, and the Colts. At number 5, just purely because I don't think they made the splashy picks, but they made everything right, I think you have to put the Colts. Colts, again, got extremely better, did everything right, but it was a lot of safe plays with not really much splash, but they did everything they needed to excellently. I think they made all the right picks at the right times and made all the smart moves. 100%. Colts at number 5, pretty good, but they're the less of the A's. If there's an A- tier, they'd be an A-. The rest of these teams would easily be an A+. And man, it's gonna be some controversy here. I'm gonna put the Steelers at 4. Again, kind of goes in that not in very many splashy plays, but they 100%. When you break down the quality of players they got, it's outstanding. Nothing splashy for sure, 100%, but they don't need it. They didn't need to be splashy. They got a freaking awesome team there, and if Russell Wilson wasn't part of the team, I'd be excited to see what they would do. Next up, the Eagles. The Eagles. If the Cardinals and Bears did not have the quality of draft picks they did, the Eagles would be number 1. If the Bears or Cardinals did not have one of their later of their first round picks, because they both had 2, I think the Eagles would be number 1. But purely because I think the Eagles, again, did everything right, made some splashy plays, made an impact for this draft to improve their team. But when you put down in context, you have the Bears and the Cardinals. They both made some awesome picks. I'm going to give the edge to the Cardinals. I love Marvin Harrison Jr. They already have Kyler Murray there. And as much as I love Caleb Williams, as much as I love the Caleb Williams pick, obviously there's an obvious pick there. I just think when you compare the two, Caleb Williams has a higher chance of being a bust than Marvin Harrison Jr. Again, this is me saying that these are the 2 best drafts, and I'm just trying to find a nitpick. Both these drafts for these teams, perfect first 2 picks. I'm going to go Marvin Harrison Jr. for the Cardinals over the Bears because I think the Bears have more to lose than the Cardinals do at this moment. Now, is that true? Maybe not, but that's the reason I'm going to do. So I think the Cardinals number 1. So in order from 32 to 1 is the Vikings, the Cowboys, the Falcons, the Bears, the Packers, the Panthers, the Dolphins, the 49ers, the Bills, the Commanders, the Texans, the Bucks, Jets, the Broncos, the Giants, the Patriots. I'm trying to make this rhyme, cannot do it, or make it sound like whatever. Top 16, Seahawks, Chiefs, Ravens, Titans, Chargers, Raiders, Jags, Bengals, Lions, Rams, Saints, Colts, Steelers, Eagles, Bears, Cardinals. That is my official ordering of the NFL draft grades. Thank you guys for watching. StraightA Dawson is out of here.